Okay, today we're going to work on assignment number 2, which is a badge logo. And here we're going to use a bunch of circles, varying strokes, and we're going to use throw a few type on a path circles and create a few little icons. We're going to start from new, Command N, or File New, and we're going to name it like we always name it. First initial, last name, section number. This one we'll call logo, t-shirt, underscore pin, underscore the month and year, because we're going to convert the logo to a t-shirt and a pin. We're going to scale it properly to fit those dimensions. We're going to use 3 artboards like the last assignment. I want them flowing down and arranged by columns. We're going to click on that. If for some reason your units aren't showing up as inches, make sure they are as inches. And we are going to have a spacing of 2 inch. Roughly, we could start off at 8.5 by 11 because we're going to change them. And this time we're going to have a bleed of 0.125 inches, which is 1/8 of an inch. And we're going to leave these intact. CMYK 300 default. So what we can do here, and we'll stretch this right out, artboard to the side, and we are going to work with our artboard and change up the sizes. Double click on the icon here. The first artboard is going to be 8.5 by 8.5, and we're going to start the logo there. And the last artboard is going to be 1 by 1 to fit the pin, roughly saying that a lapel pin will be 1 by 1 inches. And to better configure these, we could select our Artboard tool, and we can bring this up a little bit. We can hold down Shift to constrain it to 90 degrees, 0 degree, and 45 degree. We'll bring it up just a little bit right there, just to keep everything in close proximity. And we're going to start here with our circle. What we can do is that we want our circle to start in the middle. And what Illustrator might do in some situations is start you in the center. If not, that's okay. You can press Alt and Shift, and that's going to create a circle starting from the center. And we'll roughly keep it about there, not the full size 8.5 by 8.5, because we need to keep a bit of a border, and I'll show you why in just a little bit. And now to align this circle to the artboard to make sure it's centered, we will find our Align options. There's one right here, Align selection. That usually shows up as an Align. Or we can go to our Align panel. It does the same thing. We want to align to Artboard. And we're just going to have our circle selected and click on Vertical Align Center, which aligns the circle vertically, and Horizontal Align Center, which aligns it horizontally with the Artboard. We're going to convert this shape to black with no stroke. We're going to duplicate this. There's a few ways to duplicate this. I'm going to show you 2 different ways. One way to duplicate the shape is to hold down Alt, and a double arrow shows up. Click and drag, and hold down Shift to constrain it to a straight line across. You can let go. Then what you could do is you select both just by dragging a rectangle using the black arrow tool, and you can say Align to the left. Now what that does, that aligns everything to the most left object, which here happens to be the artboard. But in this situation, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to say Align to Artboard, select both, center, center, and now I have both of my circles aligned to the center. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to scale this down. To properly scale any circle down, in this situation, I'm going to hold on Alt, but always hold down Shift and use the corner anchors. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit to create a stroke here, and on this circle I want a stroke. So what I can do, I'm going to toggle this little arrow here to say I want to have no stroke, no fill, and a stroke. So with the stroke, I'm going to convert it to white. There's 3 ways to get it to white. You can click on your swatches panel and click on white. You go to your color panel and click on white, or you could double click the actual fill and click on whichever color you want, but we're going to change it to white. Next, another way to duplicate a circle or any object is to Command C, hold down Command C on your keyboard, which Command C is for copy. But if you hold down also Command F, it pastes it in front. So let me show you here. Command C copies, Command F pastes in front. So I'm going to try that right now. I'm going to say Command C, Command F. Command F. Let me try that again. Click on the circle I want. The stroke, Command C, Command F, and what that did, that just duplicated and pasted in front a circle. So now I have 3 circles on my artboard. I'm going to scale this one down, holding down Alt and Shift, and I'm going to create that inner white circle. Give myself enough space here because I'm going to put some type here, and I'm going to flip this so because I want the fill to be white and no stroke. I'm going to duplicate this circle again, Command C, Command F, and I'm going to scale it down again, holding down Alt and Shift, and having an inner black circle. Once again, I'm going to double click on this, and I'm going to convert to black. Now I have a black fill, kind of looking like a target, kind of looking like a vinyl record, if you will, or an eyeball, I guess. Next, what we're going to do, we're going to create a few strokes inside the white area. Once again, we're going to Command C, Command F. We're going to drag this one out, holding down Alt and Shift, just a little outside or inside the black. And we're going to convert that, toggle that, so that now the stroke is black and the fill is empty. And I have a nice little stroke here. What I could do, I could change the size of that stroke by going to the stroke panel. And this I'm going to say I wanted about 2 points. And I'm going to copy and paste this stroke again, Command C, Command F. I'm going to scale it down just outside the black circle. And once again, I'm going to change the stroke to 2, because once you scale down a stroke, it changes its point size. And this outer stroke, I wanted it to be 4 point to give it a little bit more girth and to give it some presence. Next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a dotted line. A little trickier in Illustrator to create a dotted line than it is in InDesign. But what I'll do here, I'm going to copy F, Command C, Command F. I'm going to roughly get it about the circle, the middle here. And what I can do here is go to my stroke panel, click on dashed line, make the dash 0, the gap 17, leave these ones empty because it'll just mimic this across. I'm going to make sure my cap is a rounded cap. And right now you can see I already have circles. What I could do to increase the circles is increase the weight, increase the thickness of the circles. You don't want them to go too thick. In this situation, we just want them to look pretty nice, evenly spaced. I'll say 8 point is kind of nice right there. So leave it at that. So now we have a dotted line circle stroke. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to copy this stroke here, Command C, Command F. We're going to bring it out about to the middle of the black area. And we are going to convert this to a type line. So to do that, and so we could type on a circle, to do that, we're going to click on the tool panel, the tool in the tool panel, the text tool. We're going to hold it down. We're going to get type on a path tool. So now we have a little type on a path tool, and we're going to click on the path. And what we could do, we could start typing. I'm typing my name. It is in black, so you can't see. So that's all I have to do to convert that black type is change the fill to white. Now all of a sudden I can see my name. What I'm going to do to make it easy on myself, I'm going to align the paragraph center. You can do that here at the top or on your paragraph panel and align the type to center. Now obviously the type move. The way to move your type around, because I want this at the top, is there's a few lines. There's a line here, and there's 2 lines up here. As you can see, when I hover over them, my arrow changes with a little line and an arrow on it. I want to use this one right here to drag it around, keeping on the outside of the circle. And I can continue to mess around with that a little bit, just to get it right in line. Oh. And what I can do here, I can go to my type character palette or my type panel. I can change the typeface. I can change the font. I can change my point size and make it large to fit the space. Don't worry about if it touches the circles or anything. We're going to fix that in a second. We can change the tracking or the kerning. Here we can change the tracking. want to do is right now this is touching the top, but I want it to be center inside this area. So I click on my path. I'm going to go to type on a path, type on a path options, and I'm going to click on baseline center. So my align to path will be center. I can preview that, and what it does now, it centers it inside the path. So now I have ample space up here and ample space down here. So there's no tension points and it's evenly balanced. I'm going to say OK. So now I have a centered type line, type on a path on a circle. I have my name there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to duplicate this again, Command C, Command F. I'm going to start click on that again. I pressed Command A, or I select all, Command A, and I can start typing some more words that I'm going to put on the bottom. And that says graphic design. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to find that line again and move it around. But this time, see what happens when I'm outside the circle. I go that way. When I go inside the circle, it goes that way. Outside, inside. And I want it that way. I'll show you a little trick. If you want to flip the type, once again, we can click on a graphic design, go to type on a path, type on a path options. With my preview selected, I can click on flip, and it flips it inside or outside. In this particular assignment, I'm going to want it flipped this way, reading with the baseline there, or I could flip it. In this situation, it's kind of like if it's a record playing, you could have both. If this were to rotate, you could see both the proper way. So I want it this way for now. So I'll say OK, and that's what I'm going to do there. And once again, this is center aligned as well on the type path, so I have an even distribution of space here and down here. And I can increase the size of that. I could change up the typeface to whatever I want. But in this case, I'll probably just keep it the same. Then what we're going to do, we're going to create a couple icons. We're going to simply just put a few stars over here. And by doing that, we just go to the shape tool, click on the star option, hold down Alt and Shift, creates that star there. Has a white fill on it. Just going to measure it up here, roughly in the middle by eye. Hold down Alt and Shift, bring it to the side, and now we have duplicated that. Now we have two arrows there, or two stars there, I should say. Next, what we're going to do is we are going to add a few effects to the outermost layer, the outermost circle. We're going to go up to Effect, and we're going to add a nice little wavy area around this. So Effect, Distort and Transform, Zigzag. From here, we're going to Preview, and our zigzag option, you can see, has already kind of made this. It still keeps the blue line, which is the path, the circle, but it started to show us what we're doing here. The points we're going to convert to smooth, and the size we're going to add there. We're going to add up a few more ridges. The zigzag to me is a little bit too much, so I'm going to bring down the size, which I think that's a little bit more subtle. With effects, you don't want to go overboard. You want to keep it fairly simple. You want to subtly add effects so they add something nice but not too overbearing. I want to say OK. Next, we're going to do, keep on that circle selected. We're going to go to Effect again. We're going to add a little bit of a drop shadow, just something small to add a little nice effect to it. We're going to keep it multiply. A lot of options you can choose here, but in this case, we're going to keep it on multiply, and we're going to play around with the opacity and the blur. For the X and Y offset, I like to keep my drop shadows as if the sun or the light source is shining directly on the object, so it disperses the shadow properly. Radiating from the center, and I'm going to change the opacity to 100 and maybe the blur to 0.05 and preview first. Now in some cases preview takes a while depending on your drop shadow and your options here, but in this case, because we kept it pretty light, it ended up rendering pretty quickly. Now obviously if you change your X and Y offsets and moves it to the left or right or up and down, what I like to do here, obviously I'm going to keep it intact just as it is, because that looks pretty subtle to me. We could change the color if we needed. We could change the opacity, the darkness level, but we're going to keep it at that for now. So there we go. And there we are. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to create a little icon in the middle to represent some type of graphic design icon. I'm going to create a little pencil. And let me show you how to do that. I'm going to click the rectangle tool and create the stem of the pencil. I'm going to convert it to white. I'm going to duplicate that, hold down Alt, and I'm going to hold down Shift. And I'm going to make this a little bit smaller, showing the size of the pencil. I could hold down Alt to change both sides at the same time. I'm going to convert that to black and bring that over. I'm going to keep it inside, and you'll see why. You want to create a little bit of white stroke because this pencil is going to go inside a black area. So I'm going to need to keep a little bit of a white area so it shows through. Next, I'm going to create a triangle. Something very simple. I'm going to hold down Shift. Create there. I'm going to hold down Shift. No, I'm not going to hold down Shift. I'm just going to eye it. Try to find the center. In some situations, Illustrator will find the center for you. I have that clicked off, so I'm just going to try to find it myself. What I could do is find the center. Control R opens the ruler panel, and I can drag a guideline down for the center of that rectangle. Zoom in, which I came pretty close, and I can adjust my line to find the center, and that's roughly the right area anyways. I'm going to duplicate, I'm going to convert this to white. I'm going to duplicate it, hold down Alt and Shift. I'm going to bring it down, scale it down, holding down Shift. I'm going to convert it to black, and I'm just going to drag it over top, place it in there. A bit more of space to create that white area there. And what I'm going to do here, because I'm going to have to play around with it, I'm going to place it in here. I'm going to group it. So Command G groups it. So now I'm going to shut off my guides, Command colon. So now I have a little pencil just using 4 shapes. And as I click on any area inside of it, it selects the whole thing because it's grouped. If I want to ungroup it, Command Shift G ungroups it, and then I can start selecting individual shapes again. So once again, I want to group it. I'm going to drag it in here, and I'm going to scale it down. Hold down Shift and Alt. I'm going to rotate it. As I come close to the corner of any object, the arrow turns into a rotate tool, and I can hold down Shift and converts it to, lets me rotate it on a 45, 90 degree or 0 degree angle. And now I have a little pencil inside here, and you can see how now the white space helped me see the black shapes inside there as well, help define those. So now I have that. The last thing, well, a few more things I'm going to do. I'm going to bring in a texture. I'm going to add a mask. So the next step, we're going to add a mask to this. By bringing in a texture. So I have 2 files that I opened. I brought them into my bar here, logo texture and t-shirt template. You can find them on Blackboard or the groups disk. Here what I did, I dragged them onto my dock here. I'm going to open them now, and what happens when I open them, click on them, Illustrator opens them as new documents up here. It allows me to access all my documents at the same time. Easy access to them up here. So first what I'm going to do is I am going to copy and paste the logo, or the texture, sorry. I could Command C, and I'm going to paste it in and move it over here. Next, in order for a mask to work, the object on front has to be black. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy and paste this circle, because I want the mask to be this whole circle. I'm going to copy and paste, Command C, Command V. I'm going to copy and paste that over here. And what I want to do, I want to use this as a mask, but right now I have 2 effects on it, which I want to take off. So in order to take the effects off, I have to go to Window, Appearance, which I can now see that this particular shape has a zigzag on it, a stroke, a fill, a drop shadow, and an opacity, or no opacity, but it would tell me if there was one. The zigzag, what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on it, I'm going to throw it out in the garbage, trash it, and with the drop shadow, another way I could do is just click and drag it down to the trash as well. So now I have that shape back again, without a zigzag, without a drop shadow. So now that this is the shape here. What I can do, and the next step, is to make sure that the mask that I will create is that the black shape is on top of whatever is going to go inside it. Number one, I need to enlarge my texture, holding down Shift and Alt to make it larger than the black circle. And from here, if it was behind, I could just say Object, Arrange, Bring to Front, because right now sometimes the texture might be in front. As you can see, it is in front. So what I need to do, click on my circle and say Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. So always make sure your mask's on front. Command minus, Command plus to zoom. And here I'm just going to select both. Right click, make clipping mask. Now what happens is I've made the texture inside that circle and only the texture is showing. I could bring that back over here, and now I have the texture over top of the logo. What I should do is create a new layer, and put the texture on top. By doing that, the new layer is there. There's nothing on the new layer. Everything's on the layer one. I can select the texture, and this little blue square is going to allow me to move anything from layer to layer. So what I have selected is this. It's showing me that something is selected on the layer, and I'm going to bring it up to the top layer. Now, on the top layer, I have the texture. The bottom layer, I have the logo. So now I could work with them independently, which is nice to do, just in case I want to work on the texture separately or the logo separately. I'm going to drag this over. I'm going to measure it up roughly. And I'm going to look at this texture. Not super happy with the texture, the way it looks. So what I can do, I can always go back in and edit it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lock the logo. I can double click on the texture, and what it does, it brings me inside the mask. So now I can play with the texture. I can either make it white, I can change the color of it, add gradient, I can change up whatever's inside it altogether. Right now I just changed the fill to white, and I'm going to change the opacity too. The transparency, I'll bring that down a little bit and play around with this, see what I get. I'm going to come back out because right now I'm on an isolated path. I'm going to double click out, and now it shows me here. Now once again, there's still a little bit going on with that texture, a little too much. I'm going to bring down that opacity once again. Click on the texture, bring it down some more, maybe 50%. Double click off the isolation mode. Yeah, that's not too bad. So at least we're there. Now you can still read my name, graphic design, see the logos and the stars. And that is the logo that we're going to create. What you can do now is go to your t-shirt template that you also opened in Illustrator. Select that, Command A, Command C, that copies, and I'm going to bring it into my second artboard. Command V, I'm going to drop it in. Now it doesn't center it perfectly, which is okay. I'm going to bring it in. It's selected. I'm going to align to artboard, which is already there. I'm going to center align and vertical align, and now it's aligned in the middle. What I can do now, before I have to unlock that, I could select the whole thing, hold down Alt and drag it down. I've duplicated it, or I can select the whole thing, Command C, Command V, and once again I will also duplicate it. Now what that does, it puts everything on one layer. So now my texture and my logo are on one layer, the top layer. It shows it right there. Everything's in red, showing everything's on the red layer. If I hide my bottom layer, it will only hide the top logo. And that's okay. So if I ever want to edit this, I could edit this separately. But this particular file, this logo, sorry, is going to be on one layer. What I can do here, I could Command G and group it. So anywhere I click on it, it's one unit. Now, before I start scaling down a logo or any shape with strokes on it and effects on it, I need to double check in my preferences, Illustrator CC, preferences, general, that my scale, strokes, and effects is on. By default, Illustrator does not have this selected. Make sure it's selected. If not, your scales and your strokes and effects will not scale properly. I'm going to hold down Alt and Shift, and it will show up, it won't show up properly. This way everything scales properly, as small as you want, as large as you want. It's going to go on a shirt. Maybe you want a little bit bigger. It's entirely up to you what you want to do here. What I'll do is I'll create, I guess, kind of like a polo shirt. Have a little logo here, as if it were to be embroidered or screened, whichever I prefer there. And lastly, we're going to drag this, holding down Alt, down to the pin area. Now I said there was a bleed on here, but it's not showing a bleed. I'm going to go back to Document Setup, and I wanted to add that bleed. It is showing a bleed. So let's see where that bleed is. Maybe I've hidden that bleed. I'm going to minimize this, Alt and Shift, right in the middle roughly. And I'm going to create a, there we are. I hid my bleed accidentally when I pressed Command colon to get rid of the guide, because this is also considered a guide. So to bring that back, I just press Command colon. So the bleed was there. Document Setup. And the bleed was there, which is an 1/8 of an inch, top, bottom, left, and right. So what I can do here is the bleed will act as the ink that wraps around the pin. I'm going to just create a box, a square, from red that covers the whole red square. I can start from the corner and hold down Shift to create a perfect circle, or a perfect square I should say. Hold that down, and now it's white. I'm going to convert it to black because the background of my pin happens to be black. And now I have a black bleed. If I need to, and the printer suggests I do, I'm going to create a die line for the pin, just in case it needs to be cut. And simply by doing this, holding down a circle, start from the corner, hold down Shift to create a perfect circle, drag it to the other corner. Now the artboard was 1 by 1. To make sure this is 1 by 1, just go to your width and your height dimensions. It's 1 by 1. Now for a die line, what we can do here is we're going to convert we're going to toggle this so there's no fill, but there is a stroke. We're going to minimize the stroke to 0.125 inches. We're going to convert it to a cyan color, 100% cyan. Different printers might suggest different things. What I want with this is a cyan line, showing the printer that this is where the cut will be for a die cut. I'm going to make sure everything is centered nicely. Bring back my black shape, my black background. Send it to the back if I have to. Object Arrange, send to back. And now I have a pin logo on the pin with a die line and a black bleed. And this will be your final project. To get it print ready, the last thing I have to do is convert my type to outlines. So right now the type is editable. I can edit it any way I want. However, when a printer opens this file up, they might not have the type that you've used, and in order to not have to worry about that, the simplest thing you could do is create outlines. It's very important to create outlines. It's either a way to it changes the type into a graphic. So the easiest way to do that is go to Create Outlines or Shift Command O, and that creates outlines for me. So now the type is converted to a graphic. It's no longer editable. It is now just a graphic with anchors and paths. I'll do the same with the pin. Select it, Command Shift O, and I've converted my type to outlines. Now I don't want to convert the top one to outlines because I want to still edit these if I ever have to. I always have an editable version of a logo for future use. You never know when things are going to change. That is the assignment, and you can save often, and I hope this helps.